That was a clip from Lean On Me. Now, if y'all saw the clip, that means YouTube let it go through. If not, that means I was flagged. These are secrets behind the making of Lean On Me. Principal Joe Clark was the inspiration behind the 1989 film Lean On Me. Passed away at the age of 82 after a long battle with the unspecified illness. Joe Clark was born in Rochelle, Georgia in 1938. Moved with his family to Newark, New Jersey when he was 6 years old, and it was there he would become known for his unconventional methods of discipline at Eastside High, including expelling 300 students in one day. Joe Clark retired from Eastside High in 1989, and in that same year, his book, Laying Down the Law, Joe Clark's Strategy for Saving Our Schools, was published. After working 6 years as the director of Essex County Detention House, Joe retired to Gainesville, Florida. He is survived by his children, Joetta, Hazel, and JJ, and grandchildren, Talitha, Jarrell, and Hazel, and preceded death by his wife, Gloria. The year 2014 marked the 25th anniversary of the 1989 classic film, Lean On Me. Here are some behind-the-scenes secrets of the iconic film. Norman Twain, the producer of Lean On Me, said he saw a 10-minute segment about Joe Clark on NBC back in 1986. He immediately thought it was a movie. He called Joe up the next day and came out to New Jersey. The NBC documentary of Joe Clark is what gave Norman the idea to do a movie. He said that Joe was all for it. He didn't know whether he was speaking of a made-for-TV movie, a home movie, or what. Norman paid him a fee for 120 days. Warner Brothers, the studio which Norman Twain was working, wasn't the first group to show the interest in. Universal Studios purchased the rights for the film 5 years before, but nothing ever came of it. Having already been a part of his process, Joe didn't know if it was really going to happen this time around. In a 1989 interview with LA Times, Joe Clark said, "I become accustomed to promises being made and declarations declared, and ultimately nothing emanating from it. So I said to myself, pessimistically, that nothing will ever come of this new attempt either. Only when I saw the cameras in the building with director John Avildsen, Morgan Freeman, and everybody else, then I said, yes, a movie is really being made." Though Morgan Freeman is Hollywood gold these days, one of the most successful actors, regardless of race, that wasn't quite the case back in the late 80s. And Warner Brothers wasn't too convinced about Morgan Freeman taking on a lead role. And so they approached Sidney Poitier, but he turned it down. He was familiar with Joe Clark and told the studio he didn't believe in his politics. In fact, he went as far as to call him a fascist. Then the idea of Bill Cosby came out, but then decided against that because his energy might be too low. Plus, he was in the middle of filming I Spy. Eddie Murphy was even considered for the film. He was interested, but the way his contract with Paramount was set up, it wouldn't allow him to work with other studios. Danny Glover was the next runner-up, but he was already filming Lethal Weapon 2. So Morgan Freeman got the job, just like producer Norman Twain wanted in the first place. Unlike Sidney Poitier, Freeman didn't seem to have a problem with Joe Clark's philosophies. Having come from an inner-city school himself in Chicago, he tended to agree with them. You have to have discipline at school. Once you lose it, you lost the whole ball game. And that's why on the job, Joe's a tyrant. Norman Twain took a step further. Joe Clark in person is a pain in the ass, a very difficult and erratic guy. He's got a temper, but there's a method to his madness that far outweighs his problems. But associate producer Michael Schiffer says that when the school systems are in shambles, like they are still today, you need a Joe Clark type of character. When the movie finally hit theaters, it's entertainment, and the design of entertainment is to make people happy. There were more falsehoods in the film. In an effort to show that people who affect the most change can also be the most difficult, they show Joe's personal relationship with his wife crumbling. The movie, Michael Schiffer, who also served as screenwriter, has Joe's wife leave him. And in real life, the Clarks were still married with 3 children, 2 from his first marriage. Here's what Clark said about the inclusion. That was something they felt they had to put in. I didn't understand why, but I didn't even question that because it wasn't important. Knowing the media, it could have been worse. The scene in the movie where Joe Clark tells his student to jump off the roof and do it expeditiously is really true. Joe said, "Now, I know that if that kid had jumped, my black butt would have been in jail for the rest of my life." And he really did fire the music teacher. He said, She was the best teacher around. After the release of the movie and the cover of Time magazine, Joe Clark was hot stuff, and he was capitalizing on all of that newfound success by traveling the country. Right around the time the film dropped, he was suspended, or he suspended himself, depending on who you ask. After a school convocation went left with when a group of performers were practically naked on stage, according to People. The striptease happened last month when Joe Clark was away on the West Coast during the Arsenio Hall show. Before he left, Clark had scheduled an assembly for 11th and 12th graders, a variety show to be produced by Eric Floyd, a young graduate of TV's fame and inspiring Las Vegas Atlantic City showstopper. Eric Floyd's show had played East Side once before without any incident, but then it had not included an act called The Goddess of Rap, in which Floyd's fiancée, Wanda D, performs with 4 muscular male dancers. In that number, as the dancers stood with their backs to the audience, Wanda D ripped their pants off, revealing only silver G-strings. The crowd of 16 and 17-year-olds screamed in delight. That assistant principal on duty rang down the curtain. Naturally, as the face of the school, the administration let Joe Clark take the blame. The man who suspended him, Dr. Frank Napier, was his good friend in the film, played by Robert Guillaume. While the parents didn't think it was all that great, the students rallied behind Mr. Clark during his suspension on protesting his behalf, holding signs and singing "Lean on Me." But Sakara Fritz, an 11th grader at the time, said Mr. Clark's attention to other endeavors was distracting him from the school. "I like him as a principal, but his public speaking all the time isn't good. We should come first." The students may have still believed in him, but the school board and superintendent didn't. They voted on Joe's termination. After Fair East Side, Joe Clark went on to run a juvenile detention center in Newark, New Jersey. He stayed from 1995 until 2002 when he resigned. But just because he left the school system doesn't mean he kept his nose clean. He came under fire again for his unique and aggressive way of operating. Okay, y'all, that's it for that. Thanks for listening. Please like, share, and subscribe. Oh, and rest in peace to Mr. Joe Clark.